What did we just watch? Wembanyama just dropped one of the wildest playoff performances we've seen in a long time, and now the whole league is on notice. The Spurs walked into OKC, took Game 1 from the defending champs on their own floor, and if this matchup keeps going like this, we could seriously be looking at an all-time playoff war. But here's the part that makes this even crazier. This was supposed to be Oklahoma City's game to take. San Antonio didn't even have De'Aaron Fox. They were coughing up turnovers all night, looking sloppy at times, and still survived. Alex Caruso played out of his mind. Jalen Williams was cooking early. SGA finally started heating up late after a rough start, and you could feel the momentum swinging back toward the Thunder crowd. Still, the Spurs never folded for a second. They stayed calm, stayed locked in, and somehow pulled off a massive road win. And honestly, this game revealed three huge things about this series moving forward, and the final one could end up deciding everything. The first thing is simple. Victor Wembanyama completely wrecked Game 1. And it wasn't only because he finished with 41 points, 24 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 9 offensive boards. Those numbers already look fake enough, but the real story was the way he controlled every inch of the game like a cheat code. OKC spent the entire night looking confused about what shots they were even allowed to take. Every time the Thunder tried running their normal offense, Wembanyama was parked in the middle like a giant wall shutting everything down. It honestly looked frustrating for them because nothing came easy once they got near the paint. Before this game, there was already talk about the Spurs throwing aggressive coverage at SGA, but San Antonio took it to another level completely. From the opening possession, they flooded him with defenders, packed the driving lanes, and sent help every single time he touched the ball. And the scary part? A lot of that help was Wembanyama leaving weaker shooters just to erase the lane completely. That's how you end up at halftime with the MVP sitting on just 4 points while only taking 5 shots in an entire playoff half. That wasn't SGA being passive either. He genuinely couldn't find clean looks because every lane felt closed off by the tallest nightmare in basketball. And Wemby wasn't just blocking shots. He was scaring players out of even attempting them. Thunder guards would drive inside, see him waiting there, and instantly hit reverse like they saw a ghost. There was even one floater from AJ Mitchell where Wemby barely had to contest because AJ threw the ball so high, trying to avoid him, that the shot had basically no chance. That's what makes Wembanyama different from everybody else in the league right now. It's not only the blocks, it's the fear factor. Players start second-guessing themselves before they even attack the rim, and against OKC, that changes everything because their offense is built around getting downhill. The Thunder want to touch the paint, collapse the defense, and spray passes out to shooters in the corners. That's their whole identity. But in Game 1, San Antonio ripped that away from them right from the opening tip and never really gave it back. Then, offensively, Wembanyama became the ultimate bailout option whenever things got ugly. Every time OKC's pressure defense started wrecking a possession, the Spurs could just toss the ball way up high and let Wemby go grab it like nobody else on the court even had a chance. Castle had some brutal turnovers in this game, no question about it, and we'll get deeper into that in a second. But at the same time, some of the passes he threw to Wembanyama were absolutely insane. The crazy thing is, those passes don't even need perfect accuracy. You can basically launch the ball near the ceiling and trust that nobody else on the court has a chance to grab it except Wemby. And once Wembanyama got anywhere close to the rim, the whole thing started looking unfair fast. OKC tried everything: physical defense, different coverages, throwing extra bodies at him. None of it mattered. He was just too massive, too long, and too skilled to deal with consistently. He also destroyed them on the offensive glass all night long. Every missed shot felt dangerous because Wemby kept flying in for second chances, turning broken possessions into easy points. That was huge too because San Antonio honestly did not shoot well from deep, and they were turning the ball over way too much with 21 giveaways. Without those extra possessions from Wembanyama, this game could have looked very different. Then you get to the historic side of this performance, and this is where things get ridiculous. With 41 points and 24 rebounds, Wembanyama became just one of 2 players aged 22 or younger to ever post a 40-point, 20-rebound playoff game. The only other name on that list? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in 1970. That's it. Seriously, just Kareem and Wemby. That's the whole club. Hearing that stat almost doesn't even sound real considering how rare that kind of dominance is in playoff basketball. And honestly, the numbers still don't fully explain how crazy this game actually felt while watching it live. Wembanyama wasn't only getting dunks and putbacks either. This dude was doing everything. In overtime, he casually pulls up from the logo and drills a huge three to tie the game. Then, a few possessions later, he takes one dribble from the perimeter, covers the floor in like 2 giant strides, and suddenly looks like Giannis attacking downhill. Then came the block to close things out. And wow! Jalen Williams tried going at him, and Wemby absolutely erased the shot with a nasty snatch block that looked like an older brother shutting down his little brother in the driveway. Watching him right now feels unpredictable in the best way possible because every possession looks like it could turn into something wild. Now yes, Wembanyama completely took over Game 1, but the Spurs still probably lose this game if the guards didn't step up with De'Aaron Fox out. And that brings us to the second huge takeaway from this matchup. The second Fox was ruled out, there was real reason to worry about San Antonio. He's supposed to be the calming presence in a brutal playoff series like this. He's the guy who settles the offense down, handles pressure, and keeps things organized against one of the most aggressive defensive teams in the NBA. So, without him, all the pressure suddenly shifted onto Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, and that's a serious challenge against OKC's defense because they love turning young guards uncomfortable fast. Now with Castle, you have to tell both sides of the story. The turnovers were ugly. 11 turnovers in a playoff game is wild, especially against a Thunder team that punishes every mistake immediately. There were loose handles, rushed decisions, dribbling straight into pressure, and suddenly OKC was sprinting the other way for transition points before the Spurs could even react. That's where missing Fox really stood out because Fox usually keeps the ball secure and doesn't get rattled easily. His control would have helped a ton in this kind of game, but even with all the mistakes, Castle still showed something impressive. He finished with 17 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds, and most importantly, he never looked scared or overwhelmed. No matter how chaotic things got, he kept attacking, kept making plays, and kept competing like the moment wasn't too big for him at all. Even after turning the ball over, Castle never stopped attacking. That's what stood out the most. A lot of young players would start playing scared after making mistakes like that, especially in a playoff environment this intense, but Castle kept coming right back at OKC every single possession. He stayed aggressive, kept trying to create plays, and some of the passes he threw were flat out ridiculous. And then, in overtime, he literally fed the MVP right at the rim like it was nothing. The confidence this kid plays with is very real, and honestly, it doesn't seem like pressure rattles him at all. Even in a messy performance filled with mistakes, he never looked overwhelmed by the moment. Then you move over to Dylan Harper, and wow, you have to remember the situation here. This is a rookie starting on the road in the conference finals because De'Aaron Fox is out, going against the defending champs and one of the nastiest defenses in basketball. That's a brutal setup for any young player. And somehow Harper responded with 24 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 7 steals. 7 steals in a playoff game like this is insane by itself. That kind of defensive activity completely changes possessions and swings momentum fast. But honestly, the biggest thing wasn't even the stat line. It was how calm Harper looked once he settled into the game. Early on, you could definitely spot the rookie moments, rushed decisions, a little nervous energy trying to force things. But once he got to the free throw line and saw a couple shots go in, everything changed. From that point forward, every time San Antonio needed somebody to settle things down, Harper stepped up. His finishing around the rim was unbelievable all night long. He kept attacking through traffic, absorbing contact, switching hands midair, and still finding ways to score through defenders. Then, in double overtime, he attacked both Caruso and Shea on the same play, got bumped multiple times, and still finished the basket. That's not normal rookie basketball at all. That's playoff toughness you usually see from veterans who've already been through deep postseason runs. And now here comes another wild historical stat. With this performance, Dylan Harper became the first player since Larry Bird to record a 20-point, 10-rebound, 5-assist, 5-steal game in the conference finals. Think about that for a second. Larry Bird and Dylan Harper. And Harper is doing this as a rookie. That's why this game can't just be explained as Wembanyama carried the Spurs again. Yes, Wemby was unbelievable, but Harper impacted this game everywhere on the floor despite the turnovers. And even though Castle finished with 11 turnovers himself, both young guards still made huge plays on both ends when it mattered most. That's what makes this scary for OKC moving forward. These weren't perfect games from the Spurs' young players at all, yet they still found ways to survive under insane pressure. Without their starting point guard available, Harper stepped right into the chaos and helped stabilize the entire offense when things could have completely fallen apart. That's a massive sign for San Antonio because playoff basketball usually exposes young players fast. Instead, these rookies kept responding every time things got intense. Now here's the part that should seriously concern the Thunder. OKC actually forced the kind of game they wanted. They created pressure, forced 21 Spurs turnovers, and shot the three ball extremely well. Normally, that formula wins you playoff games, especially at home. But they still lost anyway, and that's the third major takeaway from Game 1. If you're OKC right now, there's real reason to feel nervous because the Thunder didn't lose to some flawless Spurs performance. San Antonio played sloppy at times, turned the ball over constantly, missed shots, and still walked out with the win. What makes this loss even crazier for OKC is that the game actually looked like the type of game the Thunder usually win. San Antonio turned the ball over 21 times, and against this Thunder defense, that normally destroys teams completely. OKC was cashing in on those mistakes too, scoring 28 points off turnovers, which is a massive number in a playoff game. Then you look at the three-point shooting, and that should have favored the Thunder too. The Spurs only shot 30% from deep, which is a rough night by their standards. Meanwhile, Oklahoma City hit 38% from three, and that's usually good enough to control a game like this. And in this series, the outside shooting battle matters a ton because it changes how aggressively San Antonio can trap and crowd SGA. If the Thunder shooters are knocking shots down consistently, it punishes the Spurs for loading up defensively. In Game 1, OK actually made enough perimeter shots to win most playoff games. Then, on top of all that, Alex Caruso suddenly turned into a flamethrower off the bench. He dropped 31 points, buried 8 threes on 14 attempts, and was making huge defensive plays all over the floor. This was easily one of the best offensive games of his career. But here's the scary part for Thunder fans. Even with Caruso exploding like that, they still lost. And realistically, expecting him to hit 8 threes again feels unlikely. That's what makes Game 1 feel like such a missed opportunity for OKC, because they got huge performances in areas that usually swing playoff games. But there was one area where San Antonio absolutely crushed them, and it might become the biggest problem of the entire series: rebounding. The Spurs dominated the glass 61-40, and that's not a small advantage. That's total control. Every time OKC forced a difficult shot and thought the possession was over, Wembanyama or another Spurs player would come flying in for another rebound to keep the play alive. That's exhausting for a defense, especially when you're already working non-stop trying to slow down Wemby in the first place. The Thunder kept doing the hard part defensively, but they couldn't finish possessions because San Antonio kept stealing extra opportunities. And the bad news for OKC is this doesn't look like some random one-game fluke either. This was always one of the biggest concerns entering the series. The Thunder's smaller lineups can create offensive spacing, but they also leave them vulnerable physically on the boards. Isaiah Hartenstein barely played around 12 minutes because the matchup gets complicated fast. If he stays on the floor too long, Wembanyama can basically ignore him offensively and roam around causing chaos defensively, similar to the problems teams had trying to play traditional bigs against certain superstar lineups in past playoffs. So, OK leaned heavily into smaller 5-out lineups with Chet Holmgren playing center for long stretches. Offensively, that setup definitely helps open the floor and create better spacing, but defensively, it leaves them vulnerable when it comes to securing rebounds against a giant like Wembanyama. And honestly, this might be the issue that hangs over the rest of the series. The Thunder can make adjustments with coverage, rotations, and perimeter defense, but fixing a size disadvantage against somebody like Wemby is a completely different challenge. Before the series started, San Antonio in 7 games already felt realistic. But after watching Game 1, that prediction honestly might have been too generous toward OKC, because now the Spurs have completely flipped the pressure. They just stole home court advantage, and suddenly the path in front of them looks very clear. Handle business at home, protect your floor, and you're suddenly talking about an NBA Finals appearance. Now, to be fair, the Thunder are absolutely capable of bouncing back, and Game 2 feels like a major response spot for them. But there's no question the pressure has shifted hard after Game 1, and OKC now has to figure out how to climb out of a very dangerous situation.